Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Do Yourself No Harm, the podcast that helps high-flying professionals and entrepreneurs to prevent, recognise and manage burnout. I'm Dr. Claire Ashley, a GP and burnout survivor and expert. This week I'm going to be talking about how I've used journaling and reflective writing to make difficult decisions about my life and my career post-burnout. I'll be covering how you can use journaling to do the same for yourself, but for those of you that need a little bit of extra help, I'm going to be putting on a reflective writing workshop next Thursday at 8 p.m. The theme of the workshop is making difficult decisions, and I'll be taking you through some journaling prompts on this topic. All you need is to bring a pen, paper and yourself and prepare for an hour of indulgent writing. If you are a subscriber to my subscription box, then you can access the workshop for free. For everyone else, there is a small charge of £10 per person. The link to sign up is in the bio for the podcast for those of you that are interested, and I will be running these sessions on a monthly basis going forward with a different topic for reflection each time. And I cannot wait to get started because I found regular reflective writing to be so incredibly helpful for me post-burnout that I want to others to experience the same. So let's get on with today's topic, which is making difficult decisions and the benefits of journaling post-burnout. So this week in the UK has been a slightly odd and emotional one, with an extra bank holiday for the Queen's funeral, and then everything seemingly going back to normal pretty much immediately. So it's been a very, very odd dichotomy of emotions this week. Now, we're in a bit of a funny place in the UK right now. We have a new Prime Minister and a new cabinet that has to make some very tough decisions about what is likely to be a very rocky road economically and politically for us over the next few months. The new Prime Minister is going to have to make some very difficult decisions, and I certainly don't envy how she's going to manage our national spiralling debt, soaring inflation and interest rates, as well as a cost of living crisis. Now, when we burn out, we often have to make some very difficult decisions about our lives and our careers that perhaps we weren't expecting, hoping for, or anticipating. And quite often these tricky decisions put us on the back foot. We might end up procrastinating and delaying our decisions because they're hard, and then potentially taking the path of least resistance, which is to stick with the status quo. However, unfortunately, if we're burnt out, that doesn't help to move us on and to allow us to continue to recover and feel better. I've had to make some very difficult decisions post-burnout, luckily just about myself, and not the country. But I've had to make some really huge decisions, such as, do I want to stay in medicine? Do I want to stay being a GP? Should I stay in the role that burnt me out? FYI, I couldn't make it work, so I did leave, and that was the best decision ever. What work should I subsequently take on? How do I create a sustainable career? These decisions were incredibly hard and took a really long time for me to get my head around, and were made even more difficult in the post-burnout period, where my thinking was still very, very slow, and I fatigued really easily as well. By the way, I strongly recommend that if you are in a crisis with your mental health or in the early stages of burnout recovery, that you don't even think about making any decisions about your life or your career, because if you're in that headspace, you're just not going to have the physical or the emotional capacity to be able to engage with decision making. So if this is you, don't think about it. You need to concentrate on getting better first. But let's say that you are in the right place to start thinking about these big decisions. How do you go about doing it? Particularly when these decisions are likely to be deep and complex. Now, one way to go about doing this would be to do it with a coach or a mentor, but turning to someone like that isn't always possible or even accessible. So when you're doing it on your own, what is the best way to go about doing this? Now, I made pretty much all of my big post-burnout decisions through reflective writing and journaling, and that's why I'm talking about it today, and that's why I've set up the workshops going forward, because it's been so helpful for me. I effectively coached myself doing these writing exercises. I think there are a lot of advantages to writing post-burnout. So first of all, you can do it at a time that entirely suits you, and by that I mean you can carve out some time to do it when you're in the right space to do it. Post-burnout physical fatigue and decision fatigue are very, very real symptoms. So if you're experiencing any of that, then you have the flexibility to not engage in anything that is going to add to your current mental load. So if you're feeling really fatigued and you're not in the right space to do some journaling, then you don't have to do it. But if you're feeling like you have a little bit more energy and a bit more space and capacity to do it, then that's the time. And what you'll find is post-burnout is that you will have days where you're really struggling with your mental load. Those are not the days to do reflective writing. It's the days where you're feeling slightly better with a bit more energy. That's when you need to engage with it. And that leads me on to my second point, which is actually journaling doesn't require a huge amount of physical energy. It does require some mental and emotional energy, which is why you need to be in the right headspace to do it. But actually, in terms of costs, it's a low energy activity. Also doesn't cost anything financially. You don't have to take on any additional responsibilities or commitments in order to do it. So it's not like you're physically going to see a therapist to take you through the actions, which might be a barrier to engaging with it. There is no one else involved, so it's just you, your pen, and your journal. No one is judging you or making suggestions about how to do it. You can be completely honest and you can do it in any way that you want. There is no right or wrong way to do journaling. Even if what you write is complete and utter nonsense, or if it's really chaotic and you're just literally just writing words on a page and it doesn't make sense to anyone else, that's fine. The process is what will get you to your desired outcome. And it can really help you to coach yourself, to manage your emotions, to process traumatic events, and nudge yourself towards making the right decisions for you at this present time. And so, as I said before, it's really, really helped me on an individual basis. But there are lots of scientific studies that have produced evidence that journaling is really helpful for your mental health and physical health as well. So it can reduce your anxiety. Journaling about your feelings is linked to decreased mental distress. In one study, researchers found that those with physical health problems and anxiety who wrote for 15 minutes 3 days a week over a 12-week period had increased feelings of well-being and fewer depressive symptoms after 1 month, and their mental well-being continued to improve during the 12 weeks of journaling. Also helps you break out of the cycle of rumination and overthinking. And writing about an emotional event can help you break away from those cycles of overthinking and ruminating, but the timing does matter. So actually, if you write about a traumatic event immediately after the event, that can actually make you feel worse. So it's better to have some space before you start writing about tricky things that have happened to you, but it will help you with overthinking and ruminating. Writing your feelings about a difficult situation helps you understand it better, and it allows you to form new perceptions about the events. It also can help regulate your emotions, and particularly in burnout, people with burnout, they cannot regulate their physical responses and emotional responses to stress in the same way that someone who is not burnt out can. And so journaling can really help with this. Brain scans of people who wrote about their feelings showed that they were able to control their emotions better than those who wrote about a neutral experience. Also found that writing about feelings in an abstract way was more calming than writing vividly, which I think is really interesting and goes back to what I said previously about how there's no right way to do journaling. I used to have a diary as a teenager. Thank God I haven't looked at it for years because it would just be too embarrassing, where obviously you're writing about things that have happened, like arguments you've had with your friends and boyfriends and your changing body and all that sort of stuff. And it tends to be very emotional when you get all your feelings out, particularly as a teenager. I don't do quite the same thing as an adult post-burnout. I tend to have slightly more structure, and it's not necessarily about going over previous experiences. It's about reflecting on how those experiences have affected me and what I've learned from them and what I need to do to move myself on. Writing privately about a stressful event can also encourage people to reach out for social support and can help with emotional healing as well. It's also really good for your physical health. So in one study, those who wrote for 20 minutes a day about their feelings on upsetting events healed faster after a biopsy than those who wrote about daily activities. Isn't that interesting? I think that's fascinating. College students who write about stressful events are less likely to get sick compared to those who wrote about neutral topics like their room. This just reminds me about when I was a university student and I was in my hall of residence. My room was just awful. Like, it looked like a prison cell. It had no soul, no character. It was basic AF. I remember my parents leaving me and I just looked at this room. It had a tiny little camp bed as well. And I just burst into tears because I was like, oh my God, this is horrific. So actually for me, that wouldn't be a neutral topic because I have very strong feelings about that room. But the point is that if you write about stressful events, actually it has direct impacts on your immune system, which is amazing. Women with breast cancer who write positively or expressively about their experience with the disease had fewer physical symptoms and fewer cancer-related medical appointments. Maybe we should be prescribing journaling on the NHS, who knows? However, in that particular study, those that focused on negative emotions found that their anxiety and depression did increase. So I think there's something there about what it is that you're actually fixating on and what you're going over and over. So how can you get started? Well, this is something that is very, very simple to get started with. All you need to do is to have a small amount of time, and journaling can only take, it could take as long as you want out of your day, but you only need to start with a few minutes. And you just do what feels right. There's no hard and fast rule about what you should write. It's your space to create whatever you want in order to express your feelings. You could just do bullet points. You could do like a mind map. You could write a poem. You could write some song lyrics. You could just do some drawing. You don't have to worry about sentence structure. It doesn't have to be neat or perfect. This is something that I struggle with. I like it to be neat and perfect, but I need to get over that perfectionism. You just do what feels right. And if you need inspirational guidance, then you could come to my workshop, for instance. Or if you just Google journal prompts or how to get started in journaling, there's a whole wealth of information out there if you just need that little bit of guidance. You can write about anything, so it's up to you. You choose. You could try to write something very expressive. So you could write a piece of expressive writing. It could be something about something that's happened to you, but it could be something that you're just making up as well. Writing about an event that was stressful or emotional, provided you've had a bit of time between that event, may be more beneficial to your mental health than just diary writing. Now, one of the ways that I journal is to regularly practice gratitude. Now, when I first started reading about gratitude, I was not convinced at all. I was like, this is an Instagram fad. I'm not interested in doing performative wellness. I'm not doing this for a certain aesthetic. This is a load of rubbish. But actually, the more I read about it, the more I realized that actually practicing gratitude really does have a significant body of evidence behind it. And I'm going to share some of those benefits with you now. So in college students receiving counselling, those that wrote gratitude letters weekly for 3 weeks reported significantly better mental health at 4 weeks and 12 weeks after the writing exercise finished. So they did their letters for 3 weeks, but 3 months after doing them, they felt better still as a result of doing it. I think that's incredible. And people practicing gratitude for depression, not only do they report that they feel better in themselves, and again, this study was done over 12 weeks, but MRI scans at 12 weeks after the writing exercises continued to show greater activation in the prefrontal cortex, suggesting that gratitude has lasting effects, not only on how you feel, but also on your brain structure and function. You can get positive effects on your own health just from hearing other people's express gratitude. Those people that write about gratitude exercise more and have fewer visits to the doctor. Lack of expressed negative emotion correlates with better mental health. So by not going over and over all the negative experiences, you can change your thinking from being focused on the negative stuff to being focused on the positive stuff. Really helps to reframe your thinking. But it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a huge activity that requires a lot of effort. You just need 5 minutes a day maximum to briefly write down 3 things that you're grateful for in order to feel the effects. But you do need to do it regularly to really notice a difference. It's something that I tend to kind of drop in and out of. When I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed or down, I'll go back to doing it every single day. When I'm feeling a little bit better, I kind of ease up on it. Either pick a time to do it that works for you. For me, doing it first thing in the morning with a cup of tea is a really great time to do it. Another good time is just before you go to sleep. So we're just coming to the end of today's podcast, but I just want to finish on a slight caveat. As my friend from Wellbeing Done Well, Hannah, says, whilst writing is therapeutic, writing is not therapy, and it shouldn't be used as a substitute for therapy or coaching if that's what you need. So it's been really great for me, but disclaimer, I have also had very intensive therapy with a therapist, and having that therapy has been essential for my burnout recovery as well. But I did all of my journaling and my writing alongside the therapy. So the therapy really helped me with my unhelpful thinking styles and giving me tools to manage my stress. And then the writing I did alongside it when I was feeling good and after I'd got through the initial crisis and the initial stages of recovery in order to make difficult and big decisions about my life and my career. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. Please hit like and subscribe if you have, and join me again next week. My podcasts are released at 8 o'clock on Sunday evenings, and I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at my journaling workshop. Take care.